Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. Welcome to our Tuesday Live Parenting Styles and Decisions. Another great kind of everyday, deep in the weeds, important topic for us to discuss, at least in the context of what we do at Jumpstart Mastery, which is not only managing conflict and de escalating, but trying to optimize influence as a force for good in the world to reduce the likelihood of future emergency. Welcome all, and we'll just take a few moments to uh, let folks know that we're going live and give them a chance to come in. Welcome all. We're having a beautiful day here in the Pacific Northwest. Interestingly, it's been pretty hot the past couple of days for here. Yesterday we were up to about 87, 88 degrees. Today it's much calmer and cooler, and it's a delight to be with you. Jess, how are we doing on platforms? How are we doing on platforms? Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, using third party software. This is an education. An education. Well, hopefully, I'm getting out there. I'm looking at my phone now to see if Jess is texting me to see if she can see the lives. I know she's checking that out. How are we doing? Question mark. I'm a big voice to texter. Do you use voice to text? I love voice to text. It's much faster for me, even with swipe. I prefer it. Instagram is working. That's great. And Facebook. No YouTube or LinkedIn. Okay, so you know what, Vimeo? This is a message from me. We're going to go to StreamYard, and I'm done paying you what I'm paying you every month to reliably stream on all the platforms because this is not working well. So I'm sorry to see that. And we're following all of the instructions, and this seems to be. YouTube is working. Okay, we'll give it another minute. Another minute. I might have to take back what I said, Vimeo. Let's see if you work on LinkedIn. You have to activate LinkedIn Live with going live on Vimeo within 2 minutes of each other. So hopefully, um, LinkedIn will jump on with us. But welcome all who are here. This particular topic, which could be described as if you're a parent experiencing frustration due to inputs from other people with whom you have relationship about your parenting. Um, you're a parent and you're hearing from your mother, your mother-in-law, your cousin, your sister, some kind of, let's say, critical appraisal of your parenting. Or let's say you are in relationship with someone who is a parent and you're witnessing something that's causing you some degree of concern and you feel compelled to say something um, about what's going on in the parent child relationship. First, let me address a few contexts. Our social services, yeah, no LinkedIn, Jess, thank you. Our social services staff, whether it's government agency or uh, uh, let's say contractor to a state government or a county government for youth and family services, are routinely encountering interactions between parent and youth that are filled with conflict. And when you're in a professional caregiver role or service provider role, it's perhaps, um, let's say, more anticipated by the parent that the caseworker or peer support specialist or parent support specialist might offer in an involuntary way some thoughts about parenting. Um, to some extent, a parent can expect that from a provider. Whereas from a family member, um, let's say it might be less welcomed. In either case, we're going to talk about some strategies to make those inputs a little more receivable because they can be so loaded with emotionally arousing content. And there are lots of motivations um, to provide inputs regarding parenting. Let's say for a moment that I am a parent and someone close to me in my family has observed an interaction that causes them discomfort. I will actually share an anecdotal experience with you, lessons learned. I have a 21-year-old daughter who, when she was born, um, her mother was okay. Thank you, Jess. Hopefully hopefully it'll toggle back on or come on. Um, Her mother wanted to do a particular, let's say, cry it out kind of method when it came to um, the baby. The baby is animating themselves for care or comfort, crying, and a natural impulse is to want to respond and provide care or comfort. There was, I would say, these approaches are a little less popular right now, but there was a period of time where there was a lot of parenting content about essentially a crying it out method, allowing a baby to go through what might be, let's say, a longer than average period of discomfort to explore if they could self soothe. Leaving aside whatever personal opinions I have about that today, let me share the anecdote that's relevant to this conversation. I remember my mom um, offering unsolicited commentary about what we were doing when we were attempting this. And I knew a lot less then than I know now as a dad. Um, I remember what it felt like to manage my mother's inputs. I felt, um, I felt like she was trying to put me in touch with shame or guilt. I felt frustrated. Um, I thought what she was doing was uh, critical of me. I did not think deeply into her motivation on why she was rendering these opinions, other than to, let's say, draw more attention to herself. And I remember that conversation not going well. If my mother had said to me what she wanted to say differently, in a way I'm going to example right now, I think I would have been more receptive. And it might be something like this. If she said, Andy, it sounds like you're trying a cry it out method with Hannah. Parenting is a big responsibility, and everybody has a lot of opinions about parenting. Would you be willing to look into some of these articles about the cry it out method? That way, your decision to try this would be fully informed by some opinions about it that are less supportive. Yeah, you know what, Mom? I'd be happy to read it. Send it. But that's not what she did. Essentially, what was done was a critical appraisal was rendered that left me feeling the way that I just described. So, what did I just example compared to what she did? What I exampled was a way of floating some information that was devoid of appraisal of another human being. Um, it was devoid of the notion that she was trying to block a goal or violate an expectation. Rather, she was offering something that she could confer as important, inviting to consider, but not necessarily critical of what I was doing in the moment. Um, Spoiler alert, we abandoned the cry it out method pretty quickly, because it just wasn't doing for us what we wanted it to do. And to this day, I still carry around to some degree. I mean, Hannah has turned out brilliantly, but I wonder what it was like to experience some of that based on what we know now about um, being trauma responsive, in not wanting to make conditions worse if someone is experiencing suffering or discomfort. So, um, when it comes to inputs about parenting, when we're parents, it's extremely, I think, vulnerable and fragile to hear uninvited opinion or appraisal. And guess what? Uninvited opinion or appraisal is pretty stimulating to most people regarding any category, parenting aside. If someone engaged in uninvited opinion or appraisal about the clothing I'm wearing, I'm going to feel more than likely some degree of emotional arousal because this is an appraisal of me. Your beard is too long. You look like this. Why do you wear t-shirts when you do your lives? Why not wear a button down? Well, I have worn button downs, but um, appraisals of other people seem to freely be included in parenting content. And what we know, certainly from crisis de escalation, crisis communication learning, is that when we're trying to get someone to appreciate something, like putting the rifle down or putting the detonator down or um, let go of the nurse, uh, when we're trying to do that, it seems pretty natural under those conditions to not get into critical appraisals because it's almost common sense. If I negatively appraise this person for what they're doing, the likelihood is that uh, they could do the thing or become more animated. So, when it comes to parenting styles and parenting decisions or inputs about parenting, why the hell would I want to do that differently? So, a key takeaway, I think, is if you are a parent and someone engages in some kind of appraisal of you that is experienced as critical or derogatory or negative, to become aware of your own nervous system's natural impulses to the simple fact it is an appraisal. It has very little to do with parenting. The stimulus that my nervous system is encoding right now is going at my identity. We had a great conversation management seminar last night with the great Ashley Bryce of Great Britain, where um, the argument can be made in most aversive interactions that somewhere at the core of the dispute regards one's identity. Someone is feeling assailed in their identity, or whatever their identity is marked by or featured by, which I thought was a wonderful thing to consider. So here I am, a parent to a newborn, um, feeling some sense of awareness over the fact that I have been entrusted by the universe with the responsibility of this youngster who is, in most cases, when they're very young, entirely helpless, not independent, and someone renders an opinion about my parenting. Of course, I'm going to be vulnerable to this impulse of identity assault, very likely. Feeling the impulse is normal. Acting on the impulse is something that can be regulated and trained. I certainly don't want to tell my mother or father to go F off if they provide me unsolicited or uninvited parenting advice, but I may have to set a boundary if it's a recurring thing. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about what is it like to set a boundary with someone who is offering unsolicited or uninvited counsel that's being described in critical appraising terms. It might sound something like this. Mom, I know you love me and I know that you love your granddaughter. I appreciate that you have a very strong opinion about this. Parenting is something that adults have to do in the world. And um, experience parenting has to be acquired. How about you let me take what you've laid down here under some consideration? If you give me some time to process it, I'll probably be willing to come back around and talk to you about it at a different time. Now, let's say I did that and my mother was offended by that response because she just wanted to be helpful and she had an expectation that I would be cooperative with her desired parenting feedback. And she gets animated at me. Well, how dare you speak to your mother that way? Look, Mom, I can see that you're angry, and it was not my intention to get you angry. Uh, how child rearing occurs is a vast spectrum filled with a lot of opinions. I'm not saying for one moment that I'm not going to consider what you'd offered. I'm suggesting that you give me a little time to digest it. If you do that, maybe I can catch up to the way that you're seeing this, which I can't do in the moment, and that way I can better appreciate what you're trying to lay down. Wouldn't that be terrific if we could manage uninvited or unsolicited appraisal of our parenting approach in a way that suspends in animation? Here's the content that you're providing. I'm going to assert a boundary and say, in the moment, I really can't address this content right now, but I'm willing to contemplate it later. And that this feedback has, nothing to do with an appraisal of you, but rather it's in the service of my own self-respect. It's in the service of my own worldview, which may not be optimal and you may not agree with, obviously, but I'm speaking in soliloquy now. I'm not speaking as if I would be speaking to my mother. I'm speaking the thoughts. Um, it's probably a very common phenomena that grandparents, and I am a grandparent now, oh, by the way. And uh, this is like an aside, but let me just share this. I've heard for years from other grandparents, there's nothing like it in the world. You won't believe what it's like when you're a grandparent. And I had such a hard time conceptualizing what that meant until I became a grandparent and I held my granddaughter and I saw the whole continuum of my life and the purpose of my life radically differently in a millisecond. Now, all of a sudden, I'm seeing my lineage, I'm holding my lineage, and I'm thinking in far longer terms than whatever immediacy I might be going about my day to day life right now. It was the most astonishing thing. And I would say that in witnessing my daughter care and love my granddaughter, I have felt reasonably validated in things I did with my daughter that I'm watching her do with her infant. Um, it was a beautiful thing to witness, but not everyone may have that experience. There may be people who feel very opinionated that their son or daughter is doing something with their grandchild um, in a manner that's not consistent with what they think is best. That was what happened to me with my mom and my daughter, interestingly. So, what we're talking about here really is how to manage uninvited and unsolicited appraisals of our performance, which very often we equate to uninvited or unsolicited appraisals of us. And when that occurs, that has the potential to be very emotionally arousing. Someone engaging in an appraisal that is uninvited and unsolicited about me. Um, and where we now are getting a glimpse at where identity can be, and when identity is assaulted, can become generative of anger and generative of crisis. We have something new to appreciate. We have something new to appreciate in terms of the power of someone's identity in the context of the interaction. You may be able to even critically appraise something I'm doing, but don't critically appraise me. I would say it's like graduate school to be able to listen to someone's appraisal of you and have your needle move very little. Um, there are some areas of my life where someone's appraisal of me, um, and we hear that cliche all the time. I don't care what other people think. Bullshit. Everybody cares what other people thinks. You have to really work through your own stuff to get to a place where what someone thinks about you really doesn't matter. And when it comes to intimate relationships, relationships with family, this is where many people are particularly vulnerable to uninvited or unsolicited appraisal. Let's wrap up with this thought. Let's say you want to give, you feel strongly about offering uninvited or unsolicited opinion to someone about their parenting because you're witnessing, let's say, something tilting toward abuse or neglect. Um, an approach to navigating that might sound something like this. Hey, Jimmy, uh, I know you're a parent, and I know that you take that job very seriously. I've made some observations that have stimulated me personally, and I've done a good deal of thinking about this before bringing it to your attention. Would you be willing to allow me to share a couple of observations? And I'm going to do my level best to just share what my feelings were about them, so you don't feel appraised, but rather you consider what I'm concerned about. I think Jimmy might be open to my feedback if I'm letting him know in advance. I'd like to offer some thoughts. I'm asking permission. These thoughts are in the service of something other than you, and it's not an appraisal of you. It's just an observation of an interaction that I want to bring to your attention. Jimmy might be open to that. But if I walk over to Jimmy and say, hey, Jimmy, you send this kid out of the room when they're coming in for a hug or for some attention, like every single time I come over to hang out with you. Like, do you do this all the time? How's that kid going to grow up? What do you think Jimmy's going to do? Jimmy's going to want to take me outside and want to straighten me out for offering unsolicited opinion about his parenting in his living room. So, the takeaway there is if you want to render some feedback to someone about it, consider asking to be invited to do it or asking for permission to offer it and to focus exclusively on the observation without turning it into an appraisal of the person. So, with that, parenting styles and decisions, uh, probably a great way to describe it would be it is a vast playing field of options where people's identity, people's performance, and appraisals of all types have to exist. In that playing field, if you want to do well, whether you're receiving input or delivering input, be aware of the component of identity and be aware that if you're on the receiving side of it, if you're experiencing an impulse where your identity has been assailed by virtue of some parenting criticism, to take a moment before fashioning a response, asserting oneself, and setting a boundary. If you want to deliver parenting inputs to another human being, consider asking and preparing someone to receive it to minimize the potential of critical appraisal of their personhood or identity. I hope you enjoyed this. I love being a parent. I'm a grandparent now. It is exactly what every other grandparent has told me. It's a feeling unlike any other. And um, if anything, I'm acutely interested in my own family, being the kind of parent that I would want my children to be to their children. And I hope you feel that way too. I wish you all the best on this Tuesday. Um, Peace to you all, particularly those in California and in LA. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday at Jumpstart Mastery Networks Live. Take good care.